Good morning and welcome to Counterpoints. A lot of Trump news today. Can you believe that?
I mean, just
Not
another
like
day
him.
that ends in Y.
Yeah, not like Donald Trump, making news all over the world.
That's right.
Some
over
of
the
it
world.
actually good, and we're not going to do an entire segment on this, but we did want to let you know that the Senate passed the No Tax on Tips Act.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Let me give credit to two people that are despicable. Ted Cruz and Donald Trump got together, wrote a bill.
He's not going to come back on the show if you do that, right?
And I just said something nice about him.
Yes.
They wrote a bill and it unanimously passed the Senate. Mm-hmm. Because the center really cannot hold if you have left populism and right populism actually genuinely working together, because then you're at like a 70-30 issue, or 80-20 or 90-10. Like who's against tax on tips? So
Nobody, because it was unanimous.
Except
the vote was unanimous.
Yeah, literally. Yet it still wouldn't have happened if the populist wings didn't push it, and
Right.
for left populists didn't really push it. This is Trump.
Well,
Gotta give this one to Trump.
Kamala Harris mirrored it at one point in the campaign. She was like, tax on tips.
There you go. Yeah. So it caps, the income cap is $160,000. So if you make less than $160,000, I was reading the bill, we'll see if it fades in or not. You get basically a $25,000 tax credit against your taxes. Mm-hmm. And it's against cash, which basically means you can cheat, because as long as you can just say you got $25,000 in tips, and write that all off of your income tax. Mm-hmm. Now, most people aren't paying that much at that level, so it's kind of basically wipes out your tax bill.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great bill.
Congratulations. And now it has to pass the House. We'll see.
Yeah, great bill.
Yeah, but it should. Why wouldn't it pass the House?
Yeah, I think it'll be just fine. It's a great sign that it was unanimous. Passed unanimously
It's going to cost
in the
$200 or
Senate.
$300 billion, I think.
Yeah.
Over the next 10 years.
So it's in Golden Dome territory.
Yeah.
A lot less than the Golden Dome, actually, probably.
Just scrap the Golden Dome and pay for it.
Well, we're going to get to the Golden Dome because there's all kinds of news on that front. We'll explain what the Golden Dome is, who might pay for it, who might be in charge of constructing it. His name rhymes with D-Lon.
Trust?
Yeah. So we'll get into all of that. We have news, obviously, probably you've already heard, leaked news about Israeli plans for Iran that we're going to get into right away on today's show. We'll then be going through some Trump comments that Donald Trump made yesterday. He was on Capitol Hill talking with reporters. We got some pretty interesting tidbits out of that. We're going to talk about Sudan as well, Ryan.
Yes. Apparently, DHS sent 12 migrants from Myanmar, Vietnam, elsewhere, against a judicial order to South Sudan. And a judge has ordered them to not let those migrants out of U.S. custody, even if they're in South Sudan, in case he decides that they need to come back, because he's already indicated that this was a flagrant violation of court orders.
Well, speaking of flagrant, Bernie Sanders was on flagrant. We're going to have a conversation about the appearance that Bernie Sanders made with Andrew Schultz on flagrant, and it's really, really interesting. We're going to combine it with a New York Times article about how Democrats are looking to astroturf influencers to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. So we'll break all of that down. Congressman Ro Khanna is here. He's going to respond to Jake Tapper's appearance on Megyn Kelly's program yesterday. Some of his recent town hall stops, Ro Khanna's recent town hall stops, have been pretty interesting. So there's a lot to break down with the congressman. And Elon Musk, speaking of him, he says he's out of politics. Like, he literally said he is going to stop giving money to politics unless he thinks he has a good reason to do it. So that's a huge change, a multi-billion-dollar change for the Republican Party, for their incentive structure, and for the outside influences on policy going forward.
Yeah, and we're also going to talk about the potential breakdown of talks between Iran and the United States when it comes to the nuclear deal. Steve Witkoff pushing the U.S. position to zero uranium enrichment, including for civilian purposes. The Ayatollah Khomeini pushing back against that, and Israel now saying, well, maybe we'll just bomb them.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Make sure to subscribe at breakingpoints.com. We do the Friday shows now. They're really fun. The second half is paywalled for our Breaking Points subscribers. So if you want to do that, go ahead, head over to breakingpoints.com. If you can't, no problem. Make sure to like the videos, leave us comments, all that good stuff. Subscribe, and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts. We appreciate it so much.
Right. So, yeah, let's start with this news from CNN, which sourced it to American intelligence officials, which suggests that it's a strategic leak out of the U.S. They are claiming, we put this first element on the screen, that they have intelligence that says that Israel plans to go forward striking Iranian nuclear facilities without the United States. Now, this comes after Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, who is in charge of trying to strike this nuclear deal, which is ongoing. Like these talks have not ended, said that enrichment, any enrichment at all, is becoming a red line. Let's roll Witkoff.
Well, the president has been very clear. He wants to solve this conflict diplomatically and with dialogue. And he's given all the signals. He's directly sent letters to the supreme leader. I have been dispatched to deliver that message as well, and I've delivered it. But on the other hand, we have one very, very clear red line, and that is enrichment. We cannot allow even 1% of an enrichment capability. We've delivered a proposal to the Iranians that we think addresses some of this without disrespecting them. And so that's important. We want to get to a solution here, and we think that we will be able to. But everything begins from our standpoint, John, with a deal that does not include enrichment. We cannot have that because enrichment enables weaponization, and we will not allow a bomb to get here.
While Trump was in the Middle East, there was this floating of an idea that there could be a basically nuclear and civilian nuclear enrichment cooperative among like the Emiratis, maybe the Qataris, Saudis, Iran. And Iran said, fine, I think that's a great idea. We're happy to like contribute, research science and be part of this, but we also want our own program. Like so that you can't just like cut us off at a moment's notice and then your entire civilian program gets shut down, which is a big deal if you have half your country relying on civilian nuclear power. And so the Israelis have been pushing, and the pro-Israel faction within the Trump administration have been pushing very hard to say zero enrichment has to be the red line.
Yeah.
Because they know that Iran is not going to accept that.
Well, I mean, it's also just like sort of in substance a pretty reasonable red line from the perspective of the American people who listen to the bellicose rhetoric from Iran. And I'm not saying I actually support the 0% enrichment target because I don't think I do. I don't think that's a reasonable way to come to a deal. But I guess in substance, it makes sense why you would say zero enrichment from an American perspective.
Yes, I can imagine that would poll well. Like no nuclear enrichment, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you have people saying that they want
death
to blow,
to America, hey,
exactly.
That's their logo.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Israel has been threatening to bomb Iran for decades now, and is now, according to American intelligence officials, drawing up plans to do so even without the United States, and even while the U.S. is in negotiations with Iran. So you can imagine why, from Iran's perspective, they're like, doesn't sound very trustworthy. Separately. Israel keeps referring to their idea of zero enrichment for Iran as the Libya plan. And we know how Libya ended. Libya gave up its nuclear weapons, and then the West overthrew Gaddafi, and he was sodomized to death.
And we now have Trump Tower Tripoli, so things are going well.
Yeah,
we came,
yes, Libya,
we saw, he died. Was that the Hillary Clinton line?
Yes, that is. And Libya is now, I think, what Israelis would like, what the Israeli government would like Iran to be, which is a complete and total failed state that therefore can't pose any threat whatsoever beyond the kind of the threats to the world public that failed states actually do present.
Yeah, and we have a response here from Khamenei, so we can put the next element on the screen. It always sort of tickles me in a sad way to see him posting, right? So he says, for the Americans to say, quote, we won't allow Iran to enrich uranium is utter nonsense. We aren't waiting for anyone's permission. The Islamic Republic has certain policies and it will pursue them. And that's really the flip side of what I was just saying about the American perspective on zero enrichment. If you're Iran, of course I don't need the United States permission to pursue my own sovereign foreign policy.
And they already enriched uranium. Like, they already do it.
Well, yeah, and so we'll see how far this is able to go. I wanted to point out the byline on the CNN story includes Natasha Bertrand, also Jim Sciutto, who is an Obama appointee. So it's interesting when they're sourcing this to U.S. intelligence.
What did Jim do in the Obama?
He was he was like a deputy advisor to the China ambassador.
Oh, okay.
A pretty interesting time period to be China ambassador. But when they say the U.S. has obtained new intelligence suggesting that Israel is making preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, that's the first sentence of the story. And Ryan, I'm like, yep, yeah. Yeah, we needed the intelligence to tell us that. So it's definitely a leak from U.S. intel for some purpose.
Right, yeah, aimed at, there's a cynical, malevolent version, which is that the U.S. actually is going to help Israel with this attack and is leaking this now so that they can say, we didn't have anything to do with that, that was all Israel. Or the more benevolent, benign explanation would be that the U.S. is leaking it to try to get ahead of Israel. And to say, do not do this. We're watching you. We know you're thinking about this. We're in the middle of negotiations. You do not have the right to blow up our diplomacy, blow up our foreign policy.
So, and I think putting the puzzle pieces together with the Barak Ravid leak yesterday about how Trump is frustrated with Netanyahu, which is sort of an echo of the Biden era leaks to Barak Ravid about how the American president's frustrated. Yes, when you're frustrated, but you don't really think you are going to do anything about it, you just go to Barak Ravid and you tell the world about it. But
and you can leak to CNN too.
Yes, and I think I actually think putting those two together, that you have the Trump administration trying to suggest in the media that they're at the end of the rope with Israel, they're really frustrated with Netanyahu, and then leaking this to CNN as well. I mean, that looks to me like a pretty clear indication that they're frustrated with Israel. They actually are frustrated with Israel.
Yeah, and there were reports that Trump has been, shown a lot of pictures of suffering children inside Gaza that are the result of, not letting any food in since March 2nd. You'll have this bizarre argument from Israeli propagandists that says, look, it doesn't matter. Like this is all Hollywood. This is all fake. There's plenty of food. And it's like, you haven't let food in since March 2nd. Like, what do you think happens when 2 million people don't get fed for that long? Like, you think, like, it's just an insult to basic common sense.
Well, they're also saying that it's part of their strategy.
And they're openly saying, is it part of your strategy or not?
Right.
Right.
Because wasn't Smotrich just out like yesterday talking about how it was part of the strategy? I mean, it's not like they're denying that it's intentional.
And what Smotrich added recently, as I think you guys talked about, is that they are now going to allow in a very minimal amount of aid, just enough to relieve Western pressure.
It's like a pita a day for Palestine.
And so they are doing that. They've let in maybe 5 to 10. There's some reports that maybe 97 trucks got in. Now you would need 500 a day. That's not even accounting for the backlog of 2 months of starvation. So the indication that they're feeling pressure is that they let in any at all. Because clearly, feeling no pressure at all, we know what their approach is. 0 trucks of food, 0 trucks with medicine, 0 trucks with tents and any of the other, supplies necessary to keep people alive.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the basics like soap and like other things for basic hygiene. Like an entire city, not city, but a region of 2 million people need to stay alive.
Trita Parsi, who've obviously had on the show many times, posted just yesterday the number. He says something is happening. The number of government officials from around the world who I've heard in private conversations call Israel's slaughter in Gaza a genocide without qualifications and caveats has increased dramatically in just the past weeks. The dam is breaking. Donald Trump himself obviously just got off his trip to the Middle East. So you can understand how Trump, who's sort of this like hyper pragmatist, much more than he is in ideologue, compared at least to previous benchmarks of like neoconservative ideology that's brought into the West Wing, you could understand why he in particular would be responsive to that.
Yeah, and in the Senate, 46 Democrats, all of them except for Fetterman, signed on to a resolution, very simple resolution calling for Israel to allow aid in. And there was a debate on the House floor yesterday. Jim Risch, the top Republican in the foreign affairs, responded by saying, well, look, all Hamas has to do is surrender and return the hostages, and we'll let in food aid, which is, I don't know if he realizes it or not, an admission that you're using starvation as a weapon of war, which is a war crime. That you cannot do that. And it is also an admission that, wait a minute, and it also got him to admit the actual crisis underway. Meanwhile, a lot of Senate Republicans will not come forward and say Israel needs to let aid in, even though Trump is saying it.
Senator Rubio said it yesterday. Well, I shouldn't call him senator. He was in the Senate, so but he did say it yesterday.
He's got to say it. His boss says it.
Right. Yeah. But it isn't. I mean, Marco Rubio 5 years ago, I don't think would have ever said what he said yesterday, which is that Israel
most of what
can.
He said yesterday, he wouldn't, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he said yesterday that Israel can allow aid in and defend itself at the same time, something to that extent. Which, again, the typical paradigm, everyone knows this, would have been for a Republican politician with such dogmatic support for Israel. But I repeat myself, would reject the paradigm of the question, would reject the premise of the question about that, would say Israel has every right to act in its own interest and defend its own people and
do whatever it wants to 2 million people.
Israel. Yeah, exactly. So kind of interesting, but the cynicism when people see Biden talking like this, Kamala Harris talking like this, and now Donald Trump talking like this, especially as Trump is kind of in the middle of trying to get a deal done and the White House is leaking frustrations, then I don't think the cynicism is unwarranted at all. If the pressures lead to a better outcome and to peace, then that's good, even if it is utterly cynical.
Yeah, and if Israel did actually bomb Iran against both the public and private wishes of the United States, used United States weapons to do it, and blew up U.S. foreign policy and a diplomatic approach to Iran, I would think that even the U.S.-Israeli relationship doesn't survive that completely intact. But what do I know?
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.